to the Bayview Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew, joined by Chris Emery. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really good, man. Doing really good. So it's a good time of year.
Yeah.
We're in the summer. At the time of this recording, I have married off 2 of my children.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Congrats.
You're at both weddings. Yeah, 2 weddings in 2 weeks.
It was a good time. Yeah.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
It really was, and big celebrations. Man, I'm not just broke. I'm tired. Is that fair to say?
Broken, tired, and broke.
Broke and tired and broke. So no, it's now worth every ounce of energy and
cool.
whatever. But now, it's good. I'm kind of actually looking forward. Our summers are always a little different. We kind of have a little less of the normal routine, but at the same time, I look forward to just having some normalcy.
Yeah.
Just kind of, church activities. We have a lot of big things coming up here at Bayview Church, a lot of cool things. So, yeah.
No, that's good. No, sun's out-ish, and random days are really hot, and can't complain.
It is kind of up and down, but yeah, we'll take it. It's Northern Michigan.
It is Northern Michigan. It is the season of why we live here. So
it definitely is. I love summer too because of what we do with our summer teaching series, and we always think of something a little different. We do a lot of exegetical preaching, so we'll spend a lot of time through the course of the year just in books of the Bible, which is still my favorite style of preaching. But a lot of times in the summer, we'll take a break and do something maybe more topical. Or this summer, it's been cool. This was a summer about equipping. Yeah. And you and I had these conversations months and months ago when we planned this of like, do we feel like our folks, our people that follow Jesus, do they feel confident and equipped to be engaged in conversations about why they believe what they believe?
Yeah, that's good. And
not about apologetics necessarily. This isn't defending. I mean, there's an apologetic vibe to some of them. Yep. But basically, like, we all know, like most of us, if you're a Christian, you're listening, you're like, well, yeah, you know that you're saved because Jesus died on the cross. You know that he had to. You know, it's grace. Yeah. You know that was a requirement. He was the Lamb. We know these concepts. We know that there's God, there's Jesus, the Holy Spirit. But so many Christians, if they're honest, they feel like, man, I really am not prepared to have a deep conversation because I just don't think I know enough.
Yeah,
I don't know enough, and some of that is your own just kind of self-fear, and some of it is that we do have a lot of Christians that don't have the depth of knowledge that maybe they need.
Yeah, because I know for me at least, it's one thing to have heard a term or to have heard a concept, but it's another thing to actually be able to articulate it and or like just at least confidently speak to it. It's the random time when you're asked like, hey, what does this mean? And it's like, I think we've said it many, many times, but there's that thought of like in the back of your mind, you're like, I know, but I can't say the words. And that's really what this series I think is really built around is kind of that idea where it's like, again, maybe you're not going to give a whole dissertation and break it down and convince the person, but maybe you're going to be able to at least confidently say like, no, well, we mean this when we say it. Yeah. And will they have more questions? Sure, there can always be more questions, and that's where we're like you said, it's not all apologetics, but just more like you can lay your head on the pillow at night, confident in why you believe that your doubts. Maybe you've had doubts, or maybe you had questions. And those are getting turned to answers, and it's forcing you, and not forcing, but making you wanting to seek Jesus more.
Yeah, because good questions lead to great dialogue and conversations, and that's where so much of this needs to be happening. We're not given a model biblically from Jesus of, hey, get him to church and listen to a preacher. Yeah, it's all relationships. It's around the dining tables. It's around the water wells. It's in the streets where these things are happening. And that's the model that Jesus has given us. And so I feel this big pull, both do, that how do we equip all of our people to be part of this mission and have these conversations? And so there's probably not very many questions we're going to offer that will be one of those ones you're like, I've never thought about that. There's a lot of things that will feel very familiar at the front end, but I guarantee there's some depth and there's some understanding that we all are in desperate need of.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I have even found that in studying and prepping for some of this.
Yeah.
There's been some moments like, that really resonates. I needed that.
Yep.
And that's what we hope you have. And then you're ready. Then you feel a little bit more prepared. Like, when someone asks about this. Last week we talked about, why did Jesus have to die? Why couldn't God just be like, it's all good? We hope that we gave you some things to be like, no, this is the foundation of why that had to happen.
Yep. Or at least just maybe give you, again, some confidence in it.
Yeah.
And a better, I just have the thought of like being able to take a deep breath and like an actual, an exhale when someone asks you a question, where I know in the past where I've been asked, I get that tense of like, okay, how do I say this right? How do I, blah, blah. It's like, our hope is you're able to exhale and just have a conversation about these things.
Absolutely.
And so this past Sunday, you took us down, kind of our next question that came up is, what does it mean to be saved by grace? Again, which for a lot of people, maybe that is just like a typical church term, something you've heard. Maybe you know someone named Grace. I don't know, but either way, like there's just been this reality of like, that phrase almost falls into like a Christianese phrase.
Yeah.
It's just kind of said in the church.
Uber familiar.
Yeah. But what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
Like what is it when we say we are saved by grace?
Well, and you're right. It's something that we all, in fact, there's a few things about Christianity that are almost universally recognized. For people, even if you've never been to church, you've never been to church, most people know the name Noah and the Ark.
Yeah. Jonah and the Whale.
Jonah and the Whale, or Daniel Lion's been, David and Goliath. That's a great one. I mean, if you've ever, any sports analogy ever, David and Goliath.
Any underdog story.
Underdog story, right? David and Goliath. But another thing that's so universally understood or heard is the song Amazing Grace. I mean, we've heard pop stars sing it. They have nothing to do with, Jesus, but they're going to belt this out. And so it's one of those things like, we know these words, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Yeah.
And so we hear that like, Amazing Grace, I was a wretch. But do we really understand it? And maybe do we really truly accept it at that level?
Yeah.
Because being saved by grace is an incredibly deep, profound statement that we often miss the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the power of it. And I know this, and you know this, because we keep watching people work so stinking hard to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the kicker for me is, and you talked a little bit about this, of just that idea of like, I've gone as far as I can. All right, God, your turn to step in and finish the journey.
Yes.
I need a little bit of that grace to get me across the finish line.
Yep. I'm doing the best. I'm doing my best, I promise. But when I fall short, I'm going to need you to come in there and got my back.
Is it Talladega Nights when they're crawling towards the finish line? Like it's like, it's like I'm there. Just pull me across, and in reality, that's actually not what we're talking about at all.
Not even
that's
close.
Not how this grace thing works.
No. In fact, the hub verse we used this last Sunday that really is the big one for a lot of this is Ephesians chapter 2, and verse 8 starts this way. It says, God saved you by his grace when you believed. So we stop right there. God saved you.
Yeah.
That's it. There was nothing we had to do with part of that process. We were not part of that process in any way, shape, or form. It's not a blended hybrid situation. It wasn't Ricky Bobby crawling towards the line and God coming like, all right, let me drag you across that final 10 feet. God saved us by your grace, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God.
Yeah.
It is a gift from God. Salvation I love how simple Paul's putting this. I know he's battling the same battle we are.
Yeah.
Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done. So none of us can boast about it.
Yeah.
So basically Paul is saying here, like, stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Just knock it off.
Yep.
Stop trying to earn it. Stop trying to do. I mean, I hear this. I see this in different formats. I see this with people that are Christians, or I would even say this, regular church attenders.
Yep.
But I also see it for people that are not. I mean, how many times have you had a friend, or I've had a friend that went out on a Saturday night, and man, they tied one on, and they made some poor decisions, and there were parts of the night they don't even remember.
Yep.
The next morning they wake up so guilty, so overwhelmed with regret, and they think to themselves, you know what, I have to go to church today.
Yeah.
And I got to get back to church. I got to get back in there. And because they think like this will be the penance, this helps make up for some of my poor decisions the previous night.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sit in there and I'm going to be part of this. I'm going to do my best to listen. And there's this earn it mentality still.
Yeah.
But it's not isolated there, because how many Christians do we have? People that are in church every single week.
Yeah.
And they continue to think like, man, well, I'm doing good. God must be so proud of me that I've worked so hard.
Yeah.
And we still fall in this trap that somehow God's grace is the backfill to everything we've brought to the table.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
not it.
the cherry on top, use whatever analogy you want, but that tends to be the thought of I've done enough.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're proud of me,
mm-hmm.
you're going to give me grace.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you're showing me grace for my shortcomings of how I couldn't quite get there or couldn't quite finish. And so, but as you kind of walk through it, one of the things that, grace defined as undeserved favor, you kind of use the story or maybe the story about the kid who worked all summer. Yeah. Can you kind of walk through that a little bit?
I talked a little bit about this. It's kind of it is an example I've read a couple different places, but we can read the thing that says, okay, God's grace is this complete unmerited favor. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. That's the general description. It's something God has given us that we in no way, shape, or form deserve.
Yeah.
And so we hear that, but I think the way we apply it is like the example I used Sunday, and that would be a kid that maybe decides this summer I'm going to get a job. I'm going to save up all my money because I want to buy a car.
Yeah.
I want to buy my first car. And maybe you've been down this road and whatever. So the kid, he works his tail off. He saves his money. He doesn't go spend it on silly things. He works hard all summer saving that money because he wants to buy that car. Dad is watching this whole time, watching his son make these sacrifices. End of summer gets there, and despite his best effort, the kid is just a little bit short. He came close. He did good, but there's a gap.
Yeah.
And Dad loves his son. And Dad has watched the effort his son has put out there and says, because of how hard you've worked, because of my love for you, because I've been watching you grind and do all these things, I so value your effort that I'm going to come in. I'm going to cover the rest of that.
Yeah. I'm
going to close that gap for you.
Yeah.
Now, that's a beautiful story of a loving God or a loving dad. Yeah. That's a beautiful story of a dad. And any of us dads, we probably would do that.
Yeah.
The other side would be maybe the neighbor's kid has the same thought. I'm going to save up money for a car too, and goes home, but he's different.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a bum. He's going to sit in his room and eat pizza rolls and play, Minecraft all day.
Sounds like a good time.
Spends his money frivolously, calls into work at least once a week. Pretty lazy. And at the end of the summer, of course, he has nothing saved. I mean, maybe a couple bucks. He's so short, it's ridiculous. Dad sees this and says to himself, you know what? I know you had a goal, but man, you didn't do anything. You showed me no effort. I'm kind of disappointed in you. And the one thing, I can't reward you with a car. I can't reward your laziness. So I hope you learn a tough lesson this summer, and maybe next summer you'll do better. But yeah, you don't get a car. Sorry. Yeah. Those are all great examples of good parenting, probably.
Sure. Yep.
That has nothing to do with God's grace.
Yeah. And I think before you go on, it's like I would assume most of us fall into one or two categories of those kids.
Yes.
And I think that's how the listener, we've been functioning a lot of our life. And that's kind of all the examples we've been saying have led up to this. So then what does his undeserved favor look like then in that example?
So his undeserved favor looks like this. You had a job, you worked. You were working hard? I didn't know you were doing any of that. I mean, I had no idea. Actually, before Summer got here, I made a decision that I love you so much. I want to give you this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know you were working to try to save money. So here's the deal. As far as I know, you didn't do anything. I don't know if you're lazy or not or whatever. I'm giving this to you.
Yeah.
Another example I used Sunday was like if somebody, because we talk about the difference between justice, mercy, and grace. And so justice would be like, say you go and you steal something from a friend,
yep,
and you get caught, and you go to jail. That's justice. Mm. If you steal something, get caught, and yet they let you off without a punishment, that's mercy. Mm. If you steal something, get caught, they let you off, and they turn around and give you the very item you stole, well, now you just got something you don't deserve.
Yeah.
And so I think those are things. Justice is getting what I deserve.
Yep.
Mercy is not getting what I deserve. Grace is getting what I do not deserve.
Yeah.
And I know that's all maybe a little like, oh, that's all sounds the same. It's very different.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
And it removes the whole works-based mentality. And here's the deal. Christianity, and I think this was talked about a couple weeks ago by Dr. Emery, who is my dad, yes, by the way,
yeah.
not me. Christianity is the only religion that is not works-based. That has nothing to do with your effort.
Yeah, it's good.
You don't have to get up and pray to the east 5 times a day. You don't have to. That has nothing to do with this. This is a free gift from God given to you, without any deserving, without any effort. This is yours. Here you go. And that's being saved by grace, and that's what Paul is saying here so much in Ephesians 2. Like, listen, this is nothing you can boast about, nothing you can get excited about. It reminds me a lot about the example of the parable that Jesus talks about, the 2 people coming before coming to the altar, and you've got the one person there that is that he's religious, he's done it all right, and he holds his head high. I am so great, and he looks over and said, at least I'm not like that sinner over there. Man, look how filthy and dirty that dude is.
Yeah.
And she's like, that guy over there, he can't even hold his head up. He knows he has nothing good to offer. He knows that he has done nothing of value. So much so that I can't believe I'm standing here in this place of holiness. I can't even look up. It's like, that's the one that gets it, because that's where the grace is going.
Yeah. It's the prodigal son.
It is
like, and that's that story to me always is so much more powerful when you understand. We know the son is going back to ask for forgiveness and to offer to work and be a slave, right? To be a slave is better to live in the pig slop and all that.
Yeah.
But there is so much, again, that is illustrated by how the father responds to the boy, to the son, running to him. Old men, fathers, figures in that time didn't run, but he runs to him, right? Like he places the ring back on his finger, saying, "You're part of this family." Puts a robe on him, which indicates he's clean. Sandals for his feet. There is so much at play here that the son doesn't even get words out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And this love is being shown, and it's like there's like all of that is really a really beautiful picture of what God has done for us. Like, before we can even say, I'm full of shame, guilt, I don't deserve this. He's like, I love you.
Yeah.
And recognized and seen as still always fully his son, his daughter, his child. And the other one that comes to mind a lot for me is the Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death, like you said. It's like, a wage is something you earn. So everything I've earned, everything I've worked for, is just sin, right? And it's just death. There's just nothing but the free gift of God.
Yeah.
Is eternal life.
Yeah.
The free gift of Jesus. Like, there's nothing you did to deserve. A gift is freely given. It's something that,
well, like the prodigal son, we deserve the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, in that beautiful parable, the son took the inheritance. He took what was given, and he squandered it.
Yep.
Lost it all. Yep. And yet still received the gift of grace from his father the moment he came down the road. And I think it's Jesus trying to help us understand, like, listen, not only can you not earn it or deserve it, you've actually gone the other direction.
Yeah.
You've been the rebellious, spoiled little brat that took what I had offered you and you ruined it and you lost it all. And you came crawling back to me, hoping to maybe be a servant that could work for my favor all these years. And yet, that's not this story.
Mm.
I love that you said that. Before his words got out of his mouth, he never got to give his plea. Really.
And it's always fun as pastors to be like, to make up what he was probably thinking and saying.
Yeah.
And all we really know is that he was going back totally willing to be a slave.
Yes. 100% committed
to accept that he was no longer welcome in the home of his father, but to at least be on the property was better than to be living in the pigsty, living on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, he is seen while he's still a long way off. He is seen, and he doesn't start running all dramatically like the movies. Like, it is the father who runs to him and embraces him, and he can't even say whatever. Yeah. And he is instantly recognized as a full-on son. We don't even talk about the fact of like the inheritance he took from his father wasn't supposed to be received till his father was dead. Yep. Like there's just so much layered in there of like everything he deserved would have been. There should have been justice, maybe at least mercy shown, right? We would have been okay with either of those, but it's like, no, he has shown full on grace. Yeah.
And so here's where the rub comes in, or maybe the pivot point or intersection, confusion. I don't know the right term. But we have to be very careful. This doesn't mean that because of this extraordinary grace that we're good to just keep going on the way we are. Mm. That's not how salvation works. Yeah. What we find is that before Jesus, I was unaware of my sin. Before my life with Jesus, before all that. But when I'm made aware of my sin, I realize I don't want it anymore. There's only one way to be free, and that's through Jesus Christ. That's the salvation. This salvation is free. Mm-hmm. That is the gift of grace. It is just free. We cry out, forgive me. We are forgiven. The Bible says the old is gone, the new has come. Yep. So what we're dealing with here is that there's never a place in church where it's like, hey, you got to act right. You got to do this so that so you can be saved. That is not at all what this is saying. Yeah. That's works-based religion. What we do experience is that there is a change because of the relationship. Mm. And so does it mean, all right, so when someone experiences the free gift of grace and they're saved all by God's effort, all we've done is say yes. He said, I'm doing all this for you. Do you want to be saved? Yes. Yeah. There's the gift. But now we get into something else. Now I'm saved. Now I'm a new creation. Now my works should look different. Now my whole life should look different. Because now we're dealing with other terms, sanctification, holiness, theological terms. But the word holy at the core just simply means this, set apart. Yeah. So because I now have Jesus, because he came and saved me, well, now my life should look radically different because of what Jesus did, not because of what I did. Yeah. And that's where I think the confusion comes in sometimes. If it's somebody that I know well and they come to me like, hey, I had this incredible conversion experience with Jesus Christ. I asked him out of my life. I'm saved now. But nothing about your life has changed. Mm. Nothing about your words, decisions. There's no growth. I'm not even saying it's instant. There's no evidence of anything. Yeah. Well, then I'm not sure you had that experience. Hmm. Yeah. I'm not sure you genuinely surrendered to Jesus. You might have said some words to make the guilt go away. Yeah. Because I don't think you can have a genuine encounter with Jesus Christ and not be radically changed. Hmm. Doesn't mean you're radically perfect. Yeah. It means you're radically changed. Yeah. And so your actions begin to change, and your intentions and your desires, your thoughts, your reactions, your words begin to change. I'm not, we're not legalists, but I'm just saying, like, man, did Jesus keep his promise? Yeah. To you or not. He said the old is gone, the new has come. You are a new creation. Yep. And that's what James is talking about, I think, in James chapter 2, and we talked about this Sunday, because James says these words: some people have faith, others have good deeds. So again, James is dealing with this friction. Yep. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds, I will show you my faith by my good deeds. Now he's keeping this in the right order.
Yep.
He's not saying, hey, go get all those good deeds so that you can get faith. He's just saying, like, listen, if you have faith, and it's the faith that Ephesians is talking about, that we come to him, this gift is we believe in this grace. If you have faith, you have Jesus, man, I sure should see it.
Yeah.
Sure should seem like you did.
Yeah.
This sounds super silly, but it's funny. I often think of every year here around town, there's this mass exodus for spring break because we live in Michigan and it's cold at spring break here, and everyone's ready to get down, and most of our people go to Florida. I'm always curious when the person comes back from Florida and it's like they're just as white as when they left.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second, you're in Florida. Shouldn't you be a little tan, a little red, a little sunburned?
Sunburn, something.
Like, show me something. I mean, like, you were there. Like, there's got to be some evidence of it, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't. They come back completely tan, burned, peeling. Oh, look at you. I can tell one thing. You were in the sun.
Yeah.
Moses comes down off the mountain, being in the presence of God. What happened? He glowed.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like nuclear reactor glow.
Yeah.
Not because he did anything. It was the natural reaction of being in the presence of God.
Yeah.
My life works, the good deeds, the things about me that are different is the natural reaction of an encounter with Jesus Christ on the back end.
Yeah. It's the fruit.
It's the fruit.
It's what you're,
yeah, there you go. There's the Bible term.
Yeah. There's the production or whatever. There's the work side of what's now happening in you is we'll know you by your fruit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's where we've got to really get comfortable. And some of you listening, maybe you've said this to me or to Pastor Andrew or one of our other staff. I've had this conversation a couple times recently of like, sorry, I should be in church more. Sorry, and there's this almost like a confession. I'm such a sinner. I haven't come to church, and that's works-based guilt management.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, great. Love seeing you at church. Do I think you should be in church every week? Absolutely. But it has nothing to do with your salvation.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with, like, man, it's so good for us. It equips us, it encourages us, it helps us run this race of following Jesus. So is it important? Yeah, it's Sunday mornings. Church is super important, but for all the different reasons. You're not earning anything. It's all for your benefit.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, come to church. You should. Because it's really, really good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping track of it. We're not checking the box. You're earning nothing. If I think I even said this from stage before, that if the only reason you're coming to church is because you think you're earning brownie points with God and it's gaining you some traction there, you probably should just stay home.
Yeah. It always bothered me with the school I went to took chapel attendance.
Yeah.
In college, and it was like they like tied it into grades and fines and things like that for too many misses. And I always remember thinking, I was like, I understand you want us to be there, but what is our reasoning and purpose for being there if it's simply to just make sure we don't get in trouble?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like I think of that with it comes to heaven. It's like I think there's an excitement that when you show up and you're part of the body of Christ and you're hanging out in community and doing things that are corporate worship. I think all those are valuable, but I don't think there's someone in heaven with a clicker taking attendance. And yeah.
Yeah, it's the motive behind what we do and the order of which we think this is all playing out.
Yeah.
Understand this, that whoever you are listening, whoever we are, that the only reason, the only thing that gets us to God, the only thing that sets us free from our sins, the only thing that restores our relationship with Him, the only thing that gives us salvation and an eternity with Him, the only thing that does that is the grace of God given to us through Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
that is it. He's not. There's nothing you've done over there that's like, oh, well, you know what, thanks, that helped me out a little bit. Good job.
Yeah, exactly.
That helped me out just a little bit. I appreciate the help. I'll get the rest.
Yeah.
God does not get the rest. God gets the whole thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that there's freedom in that.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's the message that people are feeling. I hope that that's something you're able to communicate, because one of the biggest skeptic questions given against the church is like, well, it's a bunch of do-gooders, do's and don'ts, rules to follow. They see the legalistic version of church religion and not just this relationship-driven followership of Jesus Christ. That my life is, I think I used this example on Sunday. My life is a thank you note. And I think thank you notes are heavy on my mind because, again, we come out of wedding season. I remember how excited I was after our wedding. We had more than one reception because of where we lived and my pastoring. And I was so excited about how many gifts. My excitement quickly fell when my wife said, okay, now we have to write thank you notes.
Thank you notes, yep.
Like, we have to write thank you notes. Like, oh, man. Like, that's like the dread, right? Everybody's like, oh, thank you notes. It's an important response to the gift. The thank you notes weren't first. Maybe she said, hey, if we write a bunch of thank you notes, we'll get a lot of gifts. I probably would have been more enthused, like, oh, here we go, let's do this.
Sure, yeah.
The gift is ours.
Yeah.
The thank you note is optional.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like that, like, hey, everything in my life, I just want this to be the best I can. This thank you response to God. That's why we're told that we're a living sacrifice.
Yeah, that's good.
We're a living offering to God. My life is this offering response, like, hey, I received this. Man, I want to respond with a life that everything I can that pleases you.
Yeah.
And there's going to be days it's not perfect, and that's where his grace keeps coming back in. There's the backfill. It's not salvation backfill. It's all the falling short through the followership. Yeah. So, I don't know.
That's good.
Well, hey, I don't know if we made any sense today or not. We get pretty passionate about talking about these topics, and we go down bunny trails, but our goal is really to hopefully give you some talking points.
Yeah.
Help you feel confident. As Andrew said, confident not just in what you believe, but also confident to talk about what you believe, to have these conversations with friends and family, coworkers, people that you come across. So we're going to keep doing this, kind of keep grinding through these questions. We're kind of coming up at the halfway point. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's going fast.
It's going real fast.
But we got some really good questions. We got a couple guests still coming up.
Yep.
Excited about Garrett Carrs being back with us in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Rachel Gentleman will be back with us in a few weeks. So anyway, just looking forward to this summer and more of these questions.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
It's worth it.
All right, hey, thanks for being with us. Make sure to hit subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. And we're on all the major platforms. We will be right back here next week. Until then, this is Chris and Andrew. We're out of here. We'll see you next time around.